Hello, welcome back. In this third video, we will be discussing about how to configure Splunk Universal Forwarder, uh, installation and forwarding the logs to Splunk indexer, etc. Right? I have documented all the lab step-by-step process here in this GitHub wiki page. Please follow this if you're interested in doing a hands-on. So let's get started. I already have set up my lab and it is up and running. And still, we can check the status. Yes, I can see my DVWA as well as my Splunk instance. Both are running. So in order for before we jump into the Unix server, we have to create an index in our Splunk GUI. So for creating a index, you just have to go to the Splunk uh, UI and then click settings, and under settings data you see something called indexes. You have to click on that index, and by default you will see many indexes configured or available. So indexes are nothing but a repository to store the data which is coming from the log sources. So I'm going to create a new index here to avoid any confusions, and I'm going to name it as Linux Linux underscore logs. I'm going to leave all the other fields as is and then click on save. And you can confirm the creation of this index by searching the name, whatever we have created, Linux underscore logs. Okay, we can see the index is created successfully. That's the first step before we install the universal forwarders into the Ubuntu machine, what we have. Now we have successfully created this index. Let's go back to our Ubuntu machine, right? And for accessing our Ubuntu machine, we have to choose the option 3 from the lab menu. Now we are able to see this particular CLA access. So generally, right, from this particular server, this produces a lot of logs, right? When somebody tries to access the website, or when somebody tried to do a HTTP request, like post, put, get, etc. All the logs will be logged in this particular server locally. The usual place where the logs are stored in a Linux server is a folder called var and then a log. So this is the usual folder. So in our case, we have got our web server. All the web server logs are stored in a folder called Apache 2. So I'm just gonna get into Apache 2. There we have got various folders. So the first file is called access log, error log, and other access log. So I'm particularly interested in access.log because this gives us a lot of information about the type of HTTP request that this web server accepts and then sends response, etc. So let's quickly do more and then see what information this particular log has. Right, there you go. We have got many GET requests coming from various source IPs, and also we can see some kind of a post request, right? So the every time I go and do a refresh or try to log into this DVW application, there will be a log generated. So I'm gonna do log in here, which means this will produce a post request in the log. So I've logged in. Let's go back to the where folder and then let's see if our login has been logged or not. Okay, so there you go. If you see here, yeah. So this is our request. Recently we did a login, and then we were being directed to this index.php page, right? This is the URL that we had tried, and this is my source IP. Okay. Now I want all these logs to be sent to Splunk for monitoring purposes. Uh, so in order for that, what we need to do is we have to install a lightweight agent called Splunk Universal Forwarder, right? So the Universal Forwarder is available to download from a Splunk website, and you can install this Universal Forwarder into multiple operating systems like Windows, Linux, Mac, FreeBSD, Solaris, and AIX, different variants. So now, in our case, my machine is Ubuntu, which is Debian based. So what I can do is I can just quickly copy this particular link, and then I can run this particular command in the Linux server directly. So what this command will do is it will try to download the universal forwarder and to the DVWA server. So I've copied that particular command, and I'm just going to paste it in my web server, and it's trying to download the file, which is about 68 MB. So the download is completed now, and now it's time to install. So as you can see in my current directory, the Splunk forwarder file is downloaded. We can install it using couple of options. Either I can use apt install, or I can use package manager to install this Debian package. So I'm going to use apt install um, dot slash and then the file name Splunk forwarder, and this will install the universal forwarder in our DVWA machine. That's it. So now we have installed this DVWA, installed Splunk forwarder in the DVWA machine, and there are certain prerequisites that we need to check before starting the Splunk server, so which is essential in forwarding the logs to the Splunk indexes. So we want to forward the logs which is available in the where/log apache2 folder. If you look at the folder permissions, right, um, or the files can only be accessed by a owner, which is root, and it can only be accessed by a group called ADM, right? So let's check the users who are part of that particular group. So you can use this command get ent group ADM. So if you can see this, it is part of Ubuntu and Splunk forward, which means that uh, the universal forwarder has the rights to read these files. So we are good with that. So in case if the Splunk forwarder user doesn't have access to this particular ADM group folder, we have to add the Splunk forward user into this ADM group. Otherwise, the universal forwarder will not be able to read the contents of these files. If the universal forwarder cannot read the contents of this file, then it will not be able to forward the logs to the indexer, right? And the Splunk forward, this is the user which is created automatically by the Splunk forwarder installation process. This is like a usual process when the universal forwarder runs the process, it will be runs under this particular Splunk forward user. So this particular user will have a very limited privileges, helps um, in avoiding any security related issues with respect to privilege escalation, etc. Right. Now we have checked the prerequisites. Let's go back and start the Splunk process. Right. So in order for us to start the Splunk process, we have to get into the directory in which the Splunk Universal Forwarder is installed. So generally the installer path is /opt/Splunk Forwarder. So this is where the Splunk installer or the Splunk related files are installed. So specifically to start the forwarder, we have to get into a folder like opt splunk forwarder slash bin, where we will be having multiple files like all the executables. So in this case, let me do a cd to that folder, and I'll be able to I run the following command. So this command starts the Splunk server for the first time, and also it enables the Splunk server to start on the boot. And when you run this particular command for the first time, it will ask you to create a credentials. I'm just going to create the credential as Splunk and password of my own. Okay, so why it is asking us to create a new user for the first time setup is because this credentials will be used by the deployment server to push the configurations or the upgradation of the process. So this user is local to the Splunk Universal Forwarder. There won't be any user created on the Linux server itself, right? So now we have installed the Universal Forwarder completely. Let's go back and check the status. So for checking the Splunk Universal Forwarder status, you have to issue this particular command, Splunk status. It just says that Splunk D is not running, which means the Splunk process is not running at the moment, right? So what you can do is you can start the Splunk process using start command. This will start the Splunk process. So again, if you can issue the command dot slash Splunk status, it will give you the information about the Splunk process which is running, process ID, etc. So now we have set up the Splunk Universal Forwarder and we have started the process. The next step is to include the files in which the Splunk Universal Forwarder needs to read, and then it needs to forward the um, files or the logs to the Splunk Universal Server. Sorry, Splunk indexer. So this is like done in two ways. I'm going to use the ways of updating or creating the inputs.conf and outputs.conf files. So these are all the two files, the inputs.conf file, which tells the Splunk Universal Forwarders what are the files that needs to be monitored or read, and the output.conf file, it just tells the Universal Forwarder to where to send the logs, what should be the index, what should be the source type, etc. So again, these conf files are available in the opt slash Splunk directory, as you can see, but the only difference is it is available further in a directory called etc instead of bin, right? So I'm just going to edit this conf file. I have no information in this particular conf file because the universal forwarder has been freshly installed. So what we need to do is we just have to specify um, the logs which needs to be collected or monitored, etc. I already have the information with me, so I'm going to monitor a folder called var slash log. This is where all the log files for Linux resides, and I'm going to tag these logs into an index called the Linux logs, source type as syslog, and I'm going to enable this particular monitoring. When we say disabled equal to false, which means it is enabled. I'm going to save this with Control O, enter, and then Control X to come out. Right, now we have completed the inputs.conf file. Now we have to, as a next step, we have to configure the outputs.conf file. So again, the output.conf file resides in the same directory as inputs.conf. Hit enter. Again, this file is empty. I'm just going to copy the information I have in my lab manual, which mentions the information about the indexer's IP address. So if you see the server, this is the indexer's IP address and the port number 9997 in which the indexer listens to. Again, Control O, enter and then control X to save and exit the file. And every time we make changes to this inputs.conf and outputs.conf, we have to restart the Splunk process. In order to restart the Splunk process, issue a command Splunk and then restart. So this will restart the process. Okay, now the restart has been completed and we have successfully enabled the universal forwarder to send the logs to a Splunk indexer. There are few other commands that we can use to verify whether the forwarding is working as expected or not. One of the command is to view the um, monitored files, right? The command to view the monitored file is this slash opt splunk forwarder bin splunk slash list monitor. So this will list all the directories that is monitored by Splunk. We should be able to see a folder called var slash log. We have enabled it using the inputs.conf file. Okay, if you're running it for the first time, it will ask you to log in Splunk username. So provide the credentials that we have just created. And if you see, yeah, so this is where we are interested in. So we have provided the var slash log. So these are all the folders that are monitored. If you see monitor directories, these are all the folders that are monitored by the universal forwarder for various log files. Now the next command is to view the forward servers. Um, so the command is list forward server. So if you hit enter, we will be able to see the forwarders for the index servers, right? Now the one last command to do is to view the Splunk logs. If you just paste the Splunk logs, we will be able to see whether the indexer is connected or not, or any other errors that we are seeing in the process overall. So as we can see, there is this log which indicates that our universal forwarder is connected to the indexer 100.100.100.997, and it just finished reading a tracker log. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to uh, open the DVW application. I'm just gonna do a refresh couple of times so that it will generate the logs, and I'm going to the Splunk Enterprise homepage and um, go to search and reporting, and I'm going to specify the index equal to Linux logs, right? And I'm going to hit search. There we go, we have got our logs coming from our DVWA server. Okay, and that concludes this particular session. In next session we will discuss more about how to uninstall these universal forwarders and how to work with some of the SPL queries, etc. Thank you.